The snowstorm howled across the valley, rattling the old wooden barn. A father trudged through waist-high snow, carrying his two tiny children in his arms, their tiny bodies shivering violently. "Please, can we sleep in the barn? It's so cold," he whispered, voice cracking. The woman standing in the doorway watched silently. His plea hung in the icy air, fragile as frost. He had no idea her answer would shatter him emotionally and change their lives forever. The children trembled against him, their tiny hands clutching his coat. Each step through snow was agony. The father's teeth chattered, lips blue. His chest ached, not just from cold, but from helplessness. The barn, a simple wooden structure, seemed impossibly far. The woman's eyes softened faintly, yet she remained still, calculating whether to trust this desperate man and his tiny children. He reached the barn, ice crunching under his boots. He laid the children gently on straw, wrapping them in his own coat. Their breath fogged the cold air. The woman stepped forward, her gaze sharp yet hesitant. Dust motes floated in the dim light, snow slipping through cracks in the roof. For the first time, the father felt a glimmer of hope in this frozen wasteland. The youngest, barely a year old, whimpered softly. The father rocked them gently, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe now." The woman observed, silent, calculating. She had seen desperation before, but there was something raw in this man's determination, a love fierce enough to risk his life for his children. The barn, once lifeless, buzzed with fragile hope. Night fell, shadows stretching across the hay. The wind rattled the barn like a predator outside. The father hummed a low tune, keeping the infants close, shielding them from cold and fear. He glanced at the woman, whose expression flickered between curiosity and caution. Every creak, every gust felt like a reminder that danger still lurked outside. Morning brought pale light, illuminating frozen icicles. Hanging from the eaves, tiny hands explored the hay, eyes blinking against weak sunlight. The father fetched water, careful not to spill. The woman left a small pile of blankets, silently acknowledging their plight. The barn was still fragile, yet for now it was a sanctuary against the storm. Days blurred. The father repaired holes in the roof, while the children played cautiously in straw. Every day was a delicate balance between survival and warmth. The woman occasionally offered food, her hands trembling slightly. Trust was slow to grow, but each act of care was stitching together a fragile bond. One evening, shadows flickered outside. The father stiffened. Someone was approaching the barn. Tiny fingers clutched his coat instinctively. The woman's eyes sharpened. The storm wasn't their only enemy. Someone or something was watching. Each footstep echoed like a drumbeat of impending danger. A muffled knock rattled the door. The father pressed himself to shield the children. The woman stepped forward, steady, placing a hand on a hidden latch. The air was taut with suspense. Every shadow in the dim barn seemed alive, moving. The infants sensed the tension, tiny whimpers escaping their lips. The door creaked open to reveal a figure hunched against the wind, face obscured by snow and shadow. The father tensed, rifle instinctively ready. The woman's grip tightened on the latch. Tiny hands held his coat tighter. For the first time, the barn felt like the line between life and death, safety and peril. The figure stepped forward, revealing themselves as a traveling messenger. But the warning was chilling. They're coming. For the children. The father's heart sank. The storm outside was nothing compared to the threat now pressing close. Tiny hands pressed against his chest, trust fragile yet absolute. Night deepened, the storm outside relentless. The father held the infants close, rocking gently. The woman moved silently, placing extra hay and blankets around them. Each whisper, each movement, heightened suspense. The barn, once refuge, had become a fortress against unseen threats. The father noticed tracks leading away from the barn, too deliberate to be animals. Someone had been here, circling, studying. Tiny fingers pressed into his coat instinctively. The woman whispered, "They'll come back." The tension was suffocating. Every breath, every creak of the barn was a countdown toward a life-or-death confrontation. The father held the infants close as shadows flickered against the barn walls. Outside, the wind roared like a living thing. The woman's eyes glimmered with determination. "Whatever happens, they stay safe," she whispered. Tiny fingers trembled. He realized the true test had begun. The barn could be their sanctuary, or their last stand. The father's heart pounded as the barn door rattled violently. Through the snowstorm, shadowy figures emerged. Men from the village, their faces masked in frost and anger. "We're taking them back," one shouted. Tiny hands pressed against his chest, the infants whimpering. The woman stepped forward, eyes blazing with courage. Tonight, their fragile sanctuary would be tested like never before. The wind howled, carrying snow and threats alike. The father gripped a sturdy plank, shielding the children. Every creak of the barn sounded like doom. Tiny fingers clutched his coat. The woman barricaded the entrance with hay and wood. Each second stretched endlessly, the storm outside mirrored by the tension inside. Survival was not guaranteed. Shouts grew louder, footsteps pounding. The father whispered to the children, "Hold on, we'll get through this." The smallest whimper turned into a tremble of terror. Outside, the intruders circled the barn, searching for a way in. Every movement, every breath, every shadow became a heartbeat of danger. Suddenly, one intruder tried to force the door open. The woman yanked a rope, pulling it tight. The barn creaked under pressure. Snow flurries blew inside through gaps, chilling them to the bone. Tiny hands gripped his coat desperately. The father realized that courage alone would not be enough. They needed wits, speed, and luck to survive. He spotted a small back entrance behind stacked hay. Whispering, he guided the woman and infants quietly. Each step was calculated, each movement silent. The snowstorm masked their escape, but the threat of discovery made every heartbeat feel like a hammer. The barn, once a refuge, was now a gauntlet of survival. The intruders' voices faded into the storm. The father ran, heart pounding, carrying the infants while the woman followed closely. Snow clung to hair and clothing, every step a battle. Tiny hands gripped his coat, fragile yet trusting. He realized the fight was more than physical. It was about hope, love, and protecting the innocent at all costs. They reached a small clearing where the snow glimmered in pale moonlight. The father paused, chest heaving, ensuring the children were safe. The woman placed a gentle hand on each child. Relief flickered, but danger lingered. They were not yet completely free. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. Morning broke with golden light. The snowstorm faded, leaving soft white blankets across the prairie. The father and woman built a fire, warming the children. Tiny fingers reached out, touching his hands and face, trust slowly blossoming. The battle for survival was over, but the emotional scars and bonds forged in fear remained. Days passed, and the barn became a true home. The father repaired walls, mended roofs, and arranged warmth. The children laughed for the first time in weeks, tiny feet padding across straw. The woman helped with meals and chores. Every small action, every shared glance, built a fragile but unbreakable family bond. A messenger arrived with news. The villagers who had tried to reclaim the children had been held accountable. Justice prevailed. The father exhaled, relief washing over him. Tiny hands pressed into his coat, the children smiling, the woman's eyes glistening. The barn had transformed from a desperate refuge to a sanctuary of hope, trust, and love. Spring arrived, snow melting into streams across the valley. Flowers peeked through the thawing earth. The children explored freely, laughter echoing across the barn. The father watched, heart swelling. Every step, every giggle, every tiny hand in his was proof that courage and love could triumph over fear and cruelty. Evenings glowed with warm light through repaired windows. The father and woman sat near the fire, sharing quiet smiles. Tiny children played at their feet. The barn, once a symbol of fear and desperation, now pulsed with life, warmth, and healing energy, each shadow replaced by trust and joy. The cowboy held the infants, whispering stories of heroes and survival. The woman taught the children simple songs, laughter echoing through the barn, tiny hands pressed into his coat full of trust. They had survived the storm, the danger, and human cruelty. The barn was no longer a refuge, it was a home filled with love, courage, and belonging. The father carried the youngest child outside as the sunrise painted the valley gold. The woman and other children followed, laughing freely. Snow melted beneath their feet, a symbol of new beginnings. The barn, once cold and frightening, now glowed as a sanctuary. Tiny hands held tight, hearts full. Together, they had found warmth, safety, and a family forged by courage, trust, and love.